Hi, welcome back. This is part 2 of the Kriesler 1120 restoration. So in the last video we saw how I made a wax mold and filled that mold with some JB Weld and then folded it back in so it would fit into the missing parts out of the Bakelite radio. So this time around what we're going to have a look at now is how I painted the ribs to make it match, and also we're going to do a recap of the radio and put it all together, and we'll just see how it all goes. Okay, so I'm going to power this on now before I do any changes. Now, looking at this unit, I can see that there were some things that have been done with this. This is not supposed to be here, this capacitor or this capacitor. So there was something else I noticed, but I can see where there was green paint on the on what was originally soldered there, and then I can see there's some modifications. I'm going to probably try and take those modifications out and replace them with the correct capacitor sizes, and hopefully it should be back to standard. So but what I'm going to do now is we're going to turn it on before we do that, and just make sure that the radio still works. So we've got the power on there, we're running. I'll just turn this on, about 230 volts, and I have this turned on, and now I will liven this up, and this bulb should light up and then dim down. Did just slightly. So I've got an antenna plugged into it here, and we'll wait till the valves to warm up.
Joins us from East Ryan Traffic Network. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Connection through Ultimo. We've got a truck and motorcycle onto our 2 lanes.
Travelin Yuki is one of the most cultural university electorates in Australia. It is home to one of the long...
I'm going to change that over to full power because it's not shorting, everything's working fine. So now we're running on full power. We're not running through the bulbs now.
That's right. Now, just to go back in history here, 1940, the United States was a very tense time. The U.S. was not yet in World War II, but of course it was beginning to raid in Europe. And a key question...
Okay, so you can hear it there. It doesn't sound the best. Maybe it's something to do with the capacitor. More than likely it's something to do with the speaker, as trying to repair it just created so many holes that it ended up I had to coat the whole thing, so the speaker really doesn't have as much flex in it as what it should. I'm thinking maybe later on maybe I could cut this and then replace this with some type of flexible material that will help the speaker work a bit better.
Was a pro-war former Democrat, and this poll in fact did not with debt contact them. Prime Minister Scott Morrison says Australians can still live
and I think there's some problems there with a few contacts on these switches. Probably need some contact spray in those. Okay, so I just wanted to show you it worked before I started doing any work on it, and we'll see what happens from there. Okay, what I want to show you now is the capacitor. So this is the capacitor that I've taken out of an old radio, and you can see on the capacitor there's a little black line. Well, on the new capacitors, this black line indicator is not on them, and what it does is it indicates that the shielding side of the capacitor. So these capacitors do have a shield, and which goes to the earth side, which is to stop RF from getting in and interference. So this is a newer type capacitor, and as you can see there's no indicator, and even if you look at the writing and you can see, you think, well, it might be from one end to the other. Well, it doesn't appear that way. That's random. So what I do is I set up an oscilloscope, and then by putting the clamps here and then touching it, then I can have a look at the oscilloscope and the peaks and this millivolts just here, and then whatever the highest is going to be then on this side of the probe will be the shielding. So that's around about 70, 80, something like that, and I can see the peaks are fairly nearly the full length of the screen there, height of the screen. Now I'll turn this capacitor around. And then I'll hold it over the top. There, see, so that's around about 60. So that's lower. So when I can see the peaks on the screen are not as high, so then this means this is the center core and this is the outer shield. So I'll turn it around again, you'll see. See there, you can see it's much higher. So I take my hand away and it drops down. Put my hand there. It's important to try and keep around about the same amount of tension on your fingers when you're holding this, because you can squeeze harder and get a higher reading. See? So you hold it about the same. So I'll turn this around. Yeah. So from looking at that, then we know that the shielding is going to be on this side. So what I do then is I mark it. Like this. So I know that when I take the old capacitor out, I can put this capacitor back in this polarity. Okay, so after a little bit of investigation and doing a few little drawings, I found out that there hasn't been any modifications to it. There has been some replacement capacitors, this one here, and there's a few bad solders here, so I'm going to fix all that up. This capacitor is definitely way out of range, which might have been causing that problem through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace a few capacitors here, and then we'll come back to it and just see how it sounds after that, and then if that all goes well, I will replace the rest of the capacitors. Now I have done some voltage checks around here, going into the rectifier valve and out of the rectifier valve, and they all look very good, so we shouldn't have any problems with that. So I'm going to start doing some work on it now. I took out of here this capacitor here, which my understanding is 2 capacitors in one. So I've made, using 3 capacitors, modern capacitors, I've made up the values of the 16 and the 8, and put these in here. Now I've wired it in. I haven't tried it. I'm hoping it's going to work. Maybe it might go boom. I'm not quite sure. I also replaced this capacitor here. So I'm just going to test that now to make sure that still works before I go any further on this. So it's all wired in. So I'll power it on now. So I've got it on dim bulb, so we'll try that. And it's on here. And now we're gonna, we might just turn that down a little bit. Let's make that 220, and let's turn on, hopefully the capacitors don't explode. Okay. No bangs. Okay, so there was no bangs, so I'm going to continue on to replace the rest of the capacitors, and I'll probably do some testing as I replace a few different types here, because it's a little bit of a grey area for me here as to what this definitely is the wrong value here. So I'm going to replace probably this one next and then just try it again. I've just replaced all the capacitors in this area. So I'm going to now start it and put some power on it and see if it still works. Hopefully it should still work. So I'll still run it through the dim bulb for this test. So I'm just using my hand as the antenna here. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is replace all the other paper capacitors, and then we'll give it another test after we've done that. But it didn't blow up, so something must be working okay there, so that's good. Okay, so we're going to, I've replaced all the capacitors, or the ones that need replacing, none of the micro ones. Now we're going to try it for the last time here, and then we'll start doing, finishing off the restoration, cleaning it up and things like that. So I've just got on dim bulb at the moment. Okay, so that appears to be working okay. Go to full power. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is put it all back together and clean it all up, and then we'll come back to it there. Okay, I just wanted to share with you a little problem that I had. I was working on the radio and I had a problem with it losing audio. It was really strange, and I turn off and turn on, come back on and off, and sort of I thought it was okay. It must be a dirty terminal or something like that. So what I did is I bought some cleaning spray, and I pulled the valves out to clean inside the sockets and things like that. And as I was pulling this one here out, I broke the top off it, and it didn't just break the metal bit on the top, it actually broke all the glass, so it was no longer sealed. So that didn't work out so well for me. So anyway, so what I did is I was lucky I had a couple of spare radios, and I was able to pull out a valve out of one of the other ones. Now when I put it in, at first it worked, and then after a while it was making some crackling sounds. So what I was noticing is if I was tapping it like this, then that would cause a problem. So I'll run a little bit of footage now, just so you can hear the noise that it's doing. So okay, I'll just run that now. As you can see, it was not working that well for me. So what I did is I took the valve out and I resoldered all the ends there, which didn't fix the problem. So what I ended up doing is I had to desolder all of this, and then take this off, and then I put it back on again, and then I soldered it all up again, and that seemed to fix the problem. So anyway, so we'll go to that now, and we'll just have a look at that, and I'll show you it working.
Netball legend Liz Ellis was lucky enough to be there in person. She took her own daughter.
So that seems to have fixed the problem. So very strange, but I'm sure people out there will say not uncommon. But there you go. Okay, so I had a product on order and it's coming now. This is the product here. It's for cleaning chrome wheels and things like that. It was suggested to me. So I'm going to give this a go at trying to polish the breaker light. I've just got a couple of tissues here. I'm just going to have a look to see how it works, and then I've got a little buff here, so I'll use that and see what happens. I can see an improvement on that area that I've just done. So that was just with the tissue with that thing. So probably, a lot more elbow grease would definitely bring that up a lot better. But what I want to do is I want to try this and just see what this looks like. Might be some deep scratches there, so it might be good to try and hit that with that there and see what happens. Okay, so haven't quite got those scratches out, but I can definitely see that this is going to work pretty good here. So I'm going to continue using this over this area here and just see what happens. Okay, so it's definitely an improvement. So it looked like that might be the way to go. It's might be hard for you to see it in the camera, but it's very rough here. It was like very bad right through here. Also, I have some other buffs here. I have like several buffs. This all came in a little buffing kit that I purchased. Even something like this would probably be better to put on there, so like a little buff instead of using this one. This was one that I used to with a different compound for an anastomichy that I have, so probably something like this might be better for this one. Okay then, so I'll continue on doing this and we'll have a look once it's done. Okay, so I've just finished doing some polishing. I'm happy with the result. The more time you could spend on it, the more you're going to get it much better, but I'm happy for the way this has turned out for this project. So what I've done is I've put those front grill ribs in and put them in position. I'm happy with the way they sit. So what I need to do now is I need to JB weld them in place. So I'm just going to do that, and I'll put that back rib in. And use tape to sort of to hold in position. So it's a little bit shorter than I had hoped, but that's okay. It's the back you don't see, and we'll try and fill that. It's a good chance to try something different and fill this and see if we can make that match. Okay, so I'm just going to make up some JB weld now, and then I'm going to put that in here, just along here and along here and here to hold that in place, and the same with the back one here. Hope you can see that. It's very dark. So what I'm going to do is just, all it needs is a little bit on the Bakelite here, and just to bridge across. Okay, so that one's done. We'll just let that dry. Of course, that'll be overnight for that to dry, but that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to look at fixing this bit here. I had plenty of time to clean this up because this is a 24-hour glue. So I cleaned this area up here, and you see that it's got a crack in it. So we're going to try and get some glue into this crack, and also to cover this to fix it, and then put a clamp on it, and hopefully the clamp will pull it in. I think it'll be fine. Okay, so put a bit of glue in here. The idea was to push it through so it goes all the way right through. You can clean this off, and this is the back of the radio anyway, so just anything like maybe a dab of brown paint along there with a cotton bud or something like that, and that will probably disguise it. As for that hole, we might put a bit of masking tape over that and then try and fill that hole. And just fill that hole, and then we'll put a clamp on it. Okay, so we'll just leave that to dry too, and tomorrow we'll have a look at that. Okay, so it's been 24 hours now. The JB World has dried, it's very hard, and this is how it's come out on the other side on the base. And so I've got a Dremel here that I've put together. So that's the main unit. You can use it just like this, but I'm going to try it with the handle, the extension, and just see how that goes. So I'm going to first of all I'll work on this area here just to try and clean this up a bit, and this was how the top came up. So where those didn't quite join properly here. So what I did was just to put a bit of JB weld in there, and we'll try and file that out, and then try and touch it up with a bit of like a mixture of brown paint and black paint to try and match that all in. And this was how the front turned up. So it's not too bad. This was a little bit more glossier than the rest, but once it's all done, probably just a little bit of a rub back with some polish or something like that. Might just sort of rough it up a bit so it looks similar to all the rest of them. So this one here is pretty good, and it didn't join too bad. So maybe just a little bit of paint in there, rub it in, and that will make that join. But on the base it's fine because it sits flush along that edge anyway. So I'm just going to try and clean this bit up now with the Dremel, and we'll just see how that looks. So that feels not too bad actually. So probably what I'll do is give that a bit of a buff here, where I've just sort of, there was a bit of a step here with the, when I'd soldered JB welded the bottom back together again. There's a little bit of a step here, so I'll just sanded that back and with this, and then I'll give that a bit of a polish and a little bit of a buff. And that will probably take all that out. And here, just because this is the back of the radio, so it just needs to a little bit of, mix up a bit of paint and just dab it along here, and then sort of polish it off a bit. And I think that will come up okay. For this section here, I'm just thinking of using some files in here, small files, to just see if I can sort of clean that up a bit. Okay, my thoughts here are to spray these two on here, which are the colours that I use to colour those replacement parts. So I'm just going to sort of spray a bit here, and sort of then dab it onto here, and then dab it onto where we've just filed back and polished that, a bit of Bakelite on the back. I'm not quite sure how this is going to work, so we'll just have a look and find out. My idea was to try and make a bit of a pattern, so when you put it up, sort of it's a mix of both of those colours. Well, that's not too bad. Maybe once it's dried, I could probably maybe give it a light file and muck around with it a little bit more. But yeah, so it's just a bit of a mixture of the two colours there, and sort of just randomly dab it in and then dab it over there, and it seems to, it's not too bad. But it's only a small area. You wouldn't want to try and match a big area like this. That would be, just wouldn't work. Okay then, so we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to try and do this. I've polished it. It hasn't come up too bad. So I'm going to try and match this paint same way as I did the other one. Mixing two of these together. And after I've done this, I'll put the radio back together, and we'll give it a go and see how it goes. There's a good chance that I'll probably do a part 3 when I come back to doing a radio alignment and things like that. I'm just waiting for a signal generator to come in, so that could take a while. I think there is another problem with the radio too, but anyway, so we'll wait till that comes in and we'll align the radio, and then we'll see how we go from there.
In a big red is showing, or abridged rather, abridged at $11. The right letters in the right spots. And looking at the tips from Phil Roberts, she likes 10 abridged.
Okay, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and if you like the video, press like, because it all goes to helping me build my channel. Okay, thank you.